His theory linked via those iCards in the upper right-hand corner. But Twisted Ones not only confirms this underground bunker for sister location exists, it also confirms whose house it's built under. Henry's. In the novel, we see the Twisted animatronics capture the main character Charlie, again, Henry's daughter, and drop her off in some remixed version of the Fnaf 2 pizzeria. I say remixed because, like a lot of this book, it's a weird hybridization of the things that happen in the games and other stuff. It's got the carousel and balloon boys from the Fnaf 2 location, but then there's a cave and a waterfall for some reason. Because why not? Fnaf 7, Under the Sea! Earlier in the book, Charlie and her boyfriend John, who admittedly has to be the most patient and loving boyfriend in the history of the universe, like, Charlie shows him no sense of affection and he is there just like a sad puppy dog. It is tragic. Anyway, those two go to visit Charlie's childhood home, which has been destroyed by a storm. And what they find is that the storm has broken down a wall to reveal a new room, a secret room, hidden in their house that Charlie had never known about. Quote, "That's not even part of the house. I've never seen this room before. The walls were made of dark concrete, and the room was small and windowless. A box jammed into the house and sealed away beneath the rooms. Whatever's out there killing people came from there. When the storm broke the wall, a section of the house was sealed until the storm broke through." But what's really important here is what's revealed when Charlie and the gang escape from that underground pizzeria I mentioned. On page 194, "We're out! We're okay! Don't you see where we are?" she whispered. Slowly she walked the length of the room, gesturing to the 4 enormous pits in the floor, one of which contained a headless, half-buried robot. "John, this is my dad's house. It's the room we found." They escaped upward out of the underground pizzeria and wound up in Henry's house. So slowly the pieces start to fit together. Henry in the book buries and tries to seal off the Twisted animatronics and then commits suicide out of guilt for helping William to build these things in the first place, just like we see him do in Fnaf World. And just like we see the underground bunker underneath a normal, everyday home in sister location. And I'm just getting started, because while all this other information is certainly interesting, Twisted Ones exposed a detail from sister location so tiny and so minute that we all overlooked it in our excitement over decoding underground storage facilities and tracking animatronic eye color. And yet, much like that infamous Chica beak clue from Fnaf 2 and 4, this small detail is so monumentally earth-shattering to the franchise as we know it that I can't not talk about it here. On Sister Location's Night 3, Michael Afton's big task is to remove a power module from Funtime Freddy. After following the narrator's instructions on which buttons to press and what order to press them in, Freddy's chest pops open and the power module reveals itself. And it's this little blinking black dot, oddly unconnected to literally anything else in the animatronic, and in a pretty unusual place, just kinda stuck on, slightly off to the side. I remember thinking at the time that this was an odd design choice for something that was supposedly powering the whole animatronic, but how would I know? No one, and I mean no one, called this thing out, considering Night 3 in general was just kinda forgettable, overshadowed by the misery that was the Spring Lock challenge on Night 4, and the fascinating map Easter eggs hidden on Night 2. But of course, this is Fnaf, and no detail is too small in this series, and Twisted Ones blew the lid off this disc's true purpose, its little mystery being so important that it's the reason they're called the Twisted Ones in the first place. Stick with me now, because I'm not making any of this up. That little device from Sister Location is actually a mind control disc. Pause for all the stunned gasps and requisite eye rolls. I don't blame either of those reactions. Let me explain. Throughout the book, anytime the Twisted animatronics show up, people start to feel weird side effects. Page 91 and 92. As her hand touched the creature, a wave of nausea hit her, but it lasted only a split second. Something else about it had transformed at the same time. Its artificial skin took on a luminescence, and its movements were fluid and sure. Its casing suddenly appeared to have skin and fur, though they were blurry, flickering like a trick of the light. Now, after destroying one of these Twisted animatronics, Charlie and boy toy John discover a weird object embedded in the machine. Quote, "It was a flat disc, about the size of a $50 coin. She held it up to her ear. Wow, that's really high-pitched. I can barely hear it. The sound is why you feel sick. It emits some kind of signal. It changes what those things look like. It changes our perception of what they look like," Charlie corrected. Freddy's image flickered like static on a television screen. The color faded from his fur, then everything that made him Freddy winked out, leaving only a smooth plastic figure in his place. It looked like the rest of the animals in the room, a blank mannequin stripped of its characteristics. These aren't made out of fur and fabric. They're made by us, by twisting our minds. You shot the chip, you killed the illusion. Twisting our minds, you say? Roll credits! Now, for as ridiculous as a small disc that emits sounds that gets your brain to change the way it perceives the world around you sounds, it's actually kinda based in scientific fact. The brain is constantly having to process tons of information, so it is always looking for shortcuts. For instance, if I show you this text, you're probably going to be able to read it really quickly, right? It's because the brain isn't reading text by individual letters, but rather by the context of the other words around it, the way it expects the sentence to go, and making guesses off the most frequent short words that it sees on a day-to-day basis. The same is generally true in visual perception. Without going into detail here, it's how optical illusions work, and there's been plenty of research on how the brain fills in visual gaps that it experiences. So the idea that a disc is shooting out sounds that distract you, and thus cause your perception of reality to change to stuff that you're actually more familiar with isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. At least, not as far-fetched as robots haunted by dead children getting into an all-out rumble against other animatronics built to vor unsuspecting victims, which is literally a thing that happens in the climax of this book, not to spoil it or anything. And of course, it probably goes without saying, but these little mind-controlled discs were created by none other than dear old dad, William Afton, page 99. There was writing along one edge. She had to bring the piece of plastic close to her face to make the letters out. They were tiny and written in an old-fashioned flowing script. They read, Afton Robotics, LLC. Charlie dropped the disc immediately. Afton? William Afton. That's my father's old partner. That's Dave's real name, John finished. I thought he was just a business partner for Freddy's, she said slowly. I guess he did a bit more than that. So why and how does this matter in the context of the games? I actually think it has the potential to explain a lot. First, from the book. So the animatronics aren't changing shape, we're just being distracted. What's the purpose of that, though? To earn our trust, to look more friendly, to look more real, to lure kids closer. And that's something we definitely see at play throughout Sister Location. It was even in the hidden animatronic blueprints that we discovered. Weird technology put in place to lure and trap kids. Now, this is speculation, but remember Sister Location's secret control room that allowed us to observe the crying child's bedroom, as well as other key locations from Fnaf 4? On the map, they were labeled as observation rooms. Could that be what William was observing? The effects of his mind-twisting discs on children. Could Fnaf 4 not have been a dream, a nightmare, a hospital hallucination, whatever, but rather the twisted dreams generated by these distraction discs? But even beyond that, I think these discs explain a topic that I have actively avoided throughout all my theories on this series. The phantom animatronics from Fnaf 3. Remember way back to Fnaf 3 when this was supposed to be the final boss battle? There was only one real animatronic out to get you, Springtrap. All the other main jump scares were hallucinations in a building that had a high-pitched whining noise the whole time. And especially when it came to the puppet attacking you. Weird that these hallucinations are happening around a time when there's high-pitched noises around, like these discs emanate. And notice that the ventilation in the game would only tend to drop after you had been scared, not before. It's as though these hallucinations aren't coming from a lack of oxygen, like Phone Dude says, but rather from some other source. A disc specifically designed to manipulate your mind and bring forward all the horrific memories that you have buried in it. And regardless of whether you think Springtrap is Michael Afton or William Afton, which is honestly a theory for a whole nother day, one thing you can't deny is that these discs, Springtrap, and the Afton family are all connected, meaning that their use in a game where you're coming into direct contact with a giant golden bunny definitely makes a whole lot of sense. Could they also be the explanation for the other random Easter eggs we've seen throughout the series? The Lolbit mask, and the Mini Rena's random appearances in the control room of Sister Location. The Phantom Freddy and Phantom Bonnie from Fnaf 2. I mean, the Fnaf 2 location does make an appearance of sorts in the book, with the discs hidden in the lights of the building. Maybe even the hallucinations of It's Me way back in Fnaf 1. The ramification of discs like this changes everything, and we physically see them present in Sister Location. So even if Scott is tired of the franchise, that doesn't mean it has to end without the answers that we've all been waiting for. You know what? I'm here for you to try and put together this mess of a puzzle as a community of theorists. There's still plenty more to speculate about as the Twisted Ones opens the door to even more interesting and even more absurd ways of maiming and murdering children with Chuck E. Cheese-style robotics. And I haven't even gotten to how I think the main character of the book series is probably a robot. But again, those are all theories for other days. In the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory.